All right, my babies, I'm just gonna add this and have a conversation with you around it. It's a quick video because I kind of want to like tick the videos of the day. I actually have a tracker. So, we did a video today. We did the towel. We haven't done code. We haven't done walking. Anyways, a balanced scorecard, man. And uh, okay, so like just to catch up with you guys, like we're doing the techniques. There are 50 techniques that are just recorded here. There are millions more. And in all honesty, they're just kind of like a detailed version of things that you can do. So a balanced scorecard is literally a scorecard that keeps balance, right? So what's the purpose? The balanced scorecard is used to manage performance in any business model, organizational structure, or business process. Like literally, what we did before, what are we doing right now? Figure things out. What is the description? The balanced scorecard is a strategic planning and management tool used to measure organizational performance beyond the traditional financial measures. It is outcome focused and provides balanced view of an enterprise by implementing the strategic plan as an active framework of objective and performance measures, which literally means this is our goal. Did we reach it? Yes or no? That's a performance measure. It's on the balance on this. It goes on the scorecard. But another question would be like, how did we reach it? Did we reach it within budget or no? Did we reach it within time limits or no? Did we reach it efficiently, effectively? Did we use all the resources we allocated? Did we plan for it properly? If we planned for like $10,000, we used 15. That's poor planning. If we planned for $10,000 and 10 people, but we used 15 people with $4,000. Is it poor planning? I have no fucking idea. We're balancing shit out. Fuck yeah, I'm a new kid. So the underlying premise of the balanced scorecard is that the drivers of value creation are understood, measured, and optimized in order to create sustainable performance. Like, what are you measuring? And the drivers. They mention here the drivers, which is good because, like, business analysis is more of a systematic approach to the world. What does it mean? It goes like, if you look at a car as an end product, you'll never understand how it works. You kind of have to be like, okay, for a car to be a thing, there has to be the chassis, for example, which is the stable thing at the bottom that holds the wheels, holds the engine, and kind of like does not really like twist and turn. And then you kind of like need an engine in order for it to move forward and backward, but you need wheels for that as well. And then you need kind of like something to drive the wheels. Practically, that's what a fucking car is, right? Like for the engine to work, you need like everything is kind of like, and it has something that contributes to it and it contributes to something else. As long as you're thinking within these realms of processes, then ultimately you can tell, okay, like for an engine to work, an engine is a different system, but part of the car. But the same system of the engine could be applied for a fucking truck, which has different structures than a car. So it's practically the same system of the engine, okay, with the tweaks, and it's the same mental system of a car with wheels and stuff. But maybe an engine needs a bit more stuff because the wheels of an engine, for example, are different than wheels in a car. First, they're bigger. They have to be designed on a truck. Sorry, are bigger than a car because they have to be designed differently. So the wheel as a system has its own kind of like contributors because, like, when you put the brake of an engine needs to kind of like be it's pressure based, and a brake on a truck is air pressure based, so it keeps going, pss, 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 and so that they could when they apply pressure on the brake, it actually a brake pad it kind of stops, but it can't stop the same way a car does. A car is much lighter. A truck is about like 5 to 20 tons, whilst the car is at maximum 1 point or something tons, right? Like so, it's different fucking things to stop such a beast. And so all of them are kind of like similar systems, but like with different contributors depending on where they're basically operational or where they're implemented or where they're utilized. So as long as you're thinking through that, you can actually like you can uh, you can understand the drivers. You can understand there's two spaces basically the flows that are happening and what kind of like what the driver needs to move and what kind of like it does for what it gives so the other drivers kind of like moves as well. And so a balanced scorecard is composed of 4 dimensions: learning and growth, business process, customer, and financial. Learning and growth is basically where you kind of like are putting your indexes, the KPIs, basically the the metrics, the metrics for your own growth, but then to the process of the business itself, and then basically for the customer to see like the feedback that you're getting from the customers, like no, we did this for them. Is it yes? Is it no? What are our thoughts? What are the things that we're actually discussing? And then ultimately, basically financial, like are we losing money, making money, and what kind of like says yes, what says no. The balanced scorecard includes tangible objectives, specific measures, and targeted outcomes derived from an organizational vision and strategy. Right? Again, like where are we going? What do we need for it? How will we? How are we planning on doing it? Because where are we going? We get to check we got there or not. How are we going? Not where. How are we going? Why are we going? It has to align with the vision. Uh, uh, what are we using to get there? How are we using it? Right? Like, it's just like who is going to be taking us there? These basically, I have a theory around that, and I can actually show you, man, by the way. So let me be that guy. This is the wall that we painted in my own office. So I don't know if you see it, but who, what, why, where, how, and when. All of these are very important aspects because they're open-ended questions, right? They're questions that you can answer any way you want. So ultimately, it all goes down to your personal drive. That's like, that's where the starting point and the end point, and that kind of like is the combination of these questions. Anyways, to get back, it's just like you're asking these questions and you're trying to kind of build around it. So a balanced scorecard kind of like looks like this, where there's the vision and strategy, and kind of like notice how everything kind of contributes to each other. So to achieve your vision. This is where I am, by the way. To achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? See the how. To succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders? To satisfy our shareholders and customers, what business processes must we excel at? And learning and growth to achieve our vision. How will we sustain our strategy to change to improve? Okay, like how do we sustain our strategy is a very good important choice. But like what are we going to be using to implement our strategy says a lot about our values and principles, for example. Because innately, as individuals, what we're doing is we're basically like moving from somewhere, which is basically our current position, and that is based, or that should hold values and principles. And the values are who we are, or what kind of people we are, and principles is how we do things, and like what are the things that we kind of like interact with that kind of like make us look a certain kind of way, right? Like I don't know. It's just the difference between an aggressive player and a passive player. Both of them are playing the same game, but one is kind of like playing with a certain style, the other is everything else. And so when it comes to a customer, basically, you have objectives, you have measures, you have targets, you have initiatives. And it's the exact same thing for financials, all of them. You kind of like have to like articulate, like, what are my objectives with the customer? I want him to want to buy another one of our products after like in the next 3 4 years. Okay, community, like what does it take for them to buy that? Okay, maybe references, maybe I don't know what. Learning and growth, like okay, what are we implementing and how are we looking at it, and why is it that we're looking at this and not that? Like all of these are kind of like questions you ask yourself as you take steps forward. When the internal business process, objectives, measures, and targets, basically you go like, we did this way last time, we're going to attempt it this way, but like with this extra this time, and let's see if that kind of like leads to a different result. But how do you measure that result? Who the fuck knows, man? You figure it out. You kind of like assume something, and you test the fuck out of it. Fuck yeah, we're business analysts, dude. Yeah. Anyways, then you have elements like learning and growth dimension. The learning and growth dimension includes measures regarding employee training and learning, product and service innovation, corporate culture. You get it? It's basically like as we evolve through the work that we do. That's basically what we're talking about. Business process dimension is we are evolving the process and how we do things. So I've noticed like in the learning and growth dimension, they're talking about basically service innovation, corporate culture, metrics guides used for training funds, mentoring, knowledge sharing, and technology improvements. All of this is literally just people talking about basically like what are the things that we can invest in. So whatever the country does, whatever the company does, whatever we do as an interactive space, again, because they mentioned culture, corporate culture. What do we do that allows us to kind of like keep finding that energy as we like grow and level up and like just do things differently. With a business process dimension, basically, like it's the metrics that indicate how well the enterprise is operating and their products meet their customer needs, right? Like, are we succeeding? Yes, so we're doing something good. Can we succeed better? Ooh. Sometimes success is slowing down, not moving faster, by the way. So like you calm your tits and actually consider what the fuck you're doing. It's intense because like I really like keep imagining how much thought goes into everything, and that we're using so nonchalantly. Like no, I don't know, it's like, whatever book this is and how it got printed at one point, and just the idea behind like what goes into printing this book, and I'm just buying it and writing on it. Right? There's a lot there's a lot of considerations for a whole lot of things, and as people, basically, we kind of like shit smoke. As people, we take this for granted because like we're using this as a tool, right? But when we're starting to think from a processing perspective, when we're starting to think like, what do I do? How do I do it as a career? And suddenly, like the people that kind of like succeed or move forward, or the people that actually are giving intention, they are showing the world that they are actually like developing a deeper understanding that others can't understand. And I feel that's where people get attracted to. So yeah, that's what people get attracted to. That's why people would work with you, because you're kind of like saying something that you know what you're talking about, but they're not understanding, and they're going to be like, I want to work with that guy, right? Or girl, whoever the fuck you are. The customer dimension includes metrics on customer focus, satisfaction, and delivery of value. These metrics capture how well customer needs are met, how satisfied they are with products and services, whether the delivery of those products and services meet their quality expectations, and their overall experience with the enterprise. Exactly what I said earlier when we were talking about the customer, like what does a successful customer look like? How do they feel? Kind of like, yay, cool, good, whatever it is. What is it that would make them kind of like, make them feel like what they're doing is working? Why what they're buying is actually like supporting them, like in the value proposition, basically, right? And financial dimension basically identifies the what financially necessary to realize the strategy, which is basically the accounting part. Like we need a budget of $50,000 for 10 people, 100 cars, whatever the fuck people do basically in life. Examples of financial measures indicate profitability, revenue growth, and added economic value. I thought of cost from one side, but on the other side as well, you kind of like have where am I going with this? Why is this a thing? And fuck yeah, man, how can I do better? Can I make more money? Ooh, ooh. Anyways, measures or indicators. There are two basic types of measures or indicators: lagging indicators that provide results. See system, right? Like something that slows things down, and or that takes more time, or that basically is delayed. They're already taken, and leading indicators that provide information about future performance. Leading indicators. Lagging indicators require feedback, but leading indicators give feedback. Can you think about it that way? I don't know. Let's see. Objectives tend to have lagging indicators by using related leading indicators, but using can provide more real-time performance information. See, that doesn't explain shit. But what they're trying to say is if you have an objective, basically, you cannot get feedback, right? Your feedback will come later, which means you kind of like have to plan for the feedback or be considering what the indicator might return or how you want it to be returned and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm cool with that kind of like approach. But by using related leading indicators, and I assume leading indicators are ones that have been chosen. Okay, leading indicators that provide information about future performance, which are probably things that we're sure of that happened before. So as we kind of like move forward with kind of like to move forward, you need something that you know what will give you, and you need to be measuring something that you don't know what you're going to get out of. I guess that's what the leading and lagging is. It's funny because like the leading indicator you use now and the lagging indicator you kind of like build for and use later in the future. Cool beans. What are the usage considerations? Woohoo! In order for measures to be meaningful, they should be quantitative, linked to strategy, and easily understood by all stakeholders. When defining measures, business analysts consider the relevant measure we are in place to ensure that any new or changed measures do not adversely impact the existing ones. Hey, remember, we kind of like we talked about this, I think, in chapter 9, or basically in chapter 8, when we were discussing about, I think, chapter 9, when we were talking about, uh, no, maybe it's chapter 7 even. Yeah, I think we were talking about requirements analysis and kind of like diving deep into all these kind of like the interactions, because if we are to think of the model that we're building as alive, you always have to consider like new ideas kind of popping up. So I feel like what they're trying to do right now is like for your measures to be meaningful, they should be quantitative. As in, you should be able to measure them. If you can't measure them, like how do you measure a person's happiness with your product, right? Uh, Out of 10 people, for example, that bought this product, 7 people referred others to use it. So that could be a measurement, correct? Or, uh, or by upgrading this in the product, 20% less people basically started calling human resources, right? So, like, all of these things are kind of like explorations and expectations and just things that build around your structure. So when defining measures, business analysts consider other relevant measures that are in place to ensure that any new or changed measures do not adversely impact any existing ones. So ultimately, like, again, let's go back to like feedback structure. The last thing I should do, for example, is kind of like create a measurement based on another measurement, which means let's just say like the overall happiness of a customer is reliant on how many times they kind of like uh, how often do customers call, for example, the customer service department? How often do they refer others, right? So if we change something, for example, in any of those two, the entire the measurement of the overall satisfaction kind of like changes. And so while you're kind of like implementing different changes or like new adjustments, you kind of have to consider the old ones that are in place to make sure like whatever changes right now doesn't influence positively or negatively. Because the last thing you want is a fake performance that basically says, hey, everyone's happy, but they're not. The only reason they're happy is because they're calling less, but they're calling less because you don't have a phone number anymore, or you switched phone numbers, or you switched to a different service that's not giving you a different KPI, for example, like an AI service or shit like this. So anytime any dimension of the balanced scorecard may be active, changing and evolving. Remember that because like with any upgrade, there needs to be update, and everyone should kind of like know what the fuck's going on, right? So like in backlog management, for example, like your update when you're balancing the scorecard. I imagine the scorecard is part of the backlog management. Like people go like, holy shit, okay, like this changed, this evolved, this moved, and all this kind of stuff. Each dimension affects and is affected by others. The balanced scorecard allows the organization to establish monitoring and measuring of scorecard of progress against objectives and adapt strategy as needed. Naturally, kind of like, okay, this is working, this is not working. It's been 3 weeks, we estimated 2 weeks, right? Oh, it's been 3 weeks, we estimated 2 weeks, we have to change 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that relate to time, right? These kinds of thinking process. Because scorecards are used to assess the performance of the enterprise for a business unit with the enterprise, changes to the measures have wide-reaching implications and must be clearly communicated and carefully managed. So, one, strengths. Yeah, okay. So like all they're saying is like they kind of say that with everything. Like give it attention, careful who's in charge, and make sure they know what the fuck they're doing or talking about or exploring, whatever it is. So, anyways, strengths facilitates holistic and balanced planning and thinking. Short, medium, and long-term goals can be harmonized in programs with incremental success measures. Strategic, tactical, and operational teams are more easily aligned in their work, encourages forward thinking and effectiveness. It's perfectly fine because it kind of like shows that when everyone's kind of looking at one balanced scorecard, everyone's kind of like in their own pace, in their own mind, kind of like building on top of what they can do better, and ultimately communication is key. What are the limitations? A lack of clear strategy makes aligning the dimensions difficult. Like again, like what are you balancing? I want to do this to reach this. Now we can actually find the score, create a basically scorecard. If you don't have a clear strategy of how you're going there, you will not be able to understand like the indexes in between. It can be seen as a single tool for strategic planning rather than just one tool to be used in suit. Okay, so look, that's basically if people are lazy, they're going to look at one thing and do it for only one purpose, or use one thing and that'll be enough. But the truth is, like to build a building, you don't need just cement blocks. You need cement, you need sand, you need many other things. Even though blocks on top of themselves would work, but they can only reach you so far. After that, you kind of like to get to a different floor, you need to like do more, and can be misinterpreted as a replacement for strategic planning, execution, and measurement. It's true. It's true. I recently like was watching a lecture. The idea is a lot of people when the discovery of A/B testing, like does this work or does that work? When the people started discovering this in tech, a lot of like companies started focusing on just testing. And when you're testing without an actual true theory, you're going to get actual positive results almost all the time because you're comparing two things. So it's the easier way to not plan because you kind of like, all you have to do is, what do you want, this or this? Oh, you chose that, let's do this. But why did they chose this? Well, they chose this because short term it worked, but this would work long term. So instead of developing this long term, what they end up doing is developing this, which kind of leads to more short term responses. And eventually the whole company goes like, what the fuck's going on? Where did we do wrong? Well, we kind of, all we did was test what the people would say yes to instead of build a philosophy of what they needed and what they would work with and blah, 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 blah. So the limitations, one of the limitations is the fact that a balanced scorecard is not a strategy. It's a way for you to kind of like keep your strategy in check. It's not a replacement. It's not the plan. It's basically like, it's a way for you to kind of like measure against your planning and yourself and execution and the measurements. It's the whole you against you approach, right? Like, what did I want to do and did I get there? Thank you very much, guys. That's 10:43. Woohoo!